Sup, guys? It's Toad back with Better Off Dead. I'm starting to maybe do live streams. At least I'm testing it out. I'm potentially going to be doing live streams in the morning. I don't know, because I haven't done my actual football videos yet for the week because I'm old and I need sleep. So I'm going to just figure out what I want to do from here moving forward. But I figure with these daily videos, maybe I could up the production quality a little bit, use StreamYard, whatever. I know I'm going to get no live viewers at 7:30 in the morning Eastern time, but whatever. Let's get into it, man. Yesterday, I won with my one play on the Chicago Cubs. Made me look like a genius. I love those days. The Cubs with a 12-0 win. Shota Imanaga with a nice start, and Domingo Germán, I think, was who I went against. He had less than a good start, let's say, so I nailed that one. My lean on the Kansas City Royals was also correct. Pretty bad for my Red Sox, as the Red Sox have just completely given up. I'm still wearing the hat, but I've flipped it backwards, kind of like an upside-down flag. It's the sign of distress for the Boston Red Sox. They're done. They should fire Cora. I can't believe they gave him a contract extension after all that's been going on. A lot of this is on him, man. This team has the most errors in Major League Baseball. That's a sign of poor management, poor coaching, I should say. This team just has no focus. They have no heart. With the amount of games that the Royals had lost recently and the Twins not doing that well either, although I will talk about the Twins today in a minute, the Red Sox have no excuse. No excuse at all for this. All right, we'll talk Major League Baseball, and then I will talk about tonight's NFL kickoff game, the NFL debut. NFL Week 1 starts tonight, and then we'll see what I want to do as far as putting out like an NFL Week 1 video. But there are so many different days of the week now that NFL games are on or whatever. I don't know if it makes sense to just do daily videos every time, but then you might lose some value on the numbers if I don't get those numbers to you right away. But I can say that I'm at the very least leaning towards playing the Philadelphia Eagles, which I think the best you can get is -2.5. That's tomorrow night. And on Sunday, I like the Tennessee Titans plus the points +4 or whatever you can get on that. And then Monday night, New York Jets +4.5 or so. Just in case those numbers get worse or whatever, you can kind of figure out what to do with that. I think that those games are all kind of fading the public except the Eagles, though. So the Eagles would be the only one that you would need to get on earlier than later. You might wind up having to lay a 3. I don't hate that on the Eagles, but all right, let's bring up this baseball card here. Hey, I actually shrunk my window this time because I have a massive ultra-wide 38-inch monitor here, so it tends to shrink the size of like the window basically relatively. So when I try to show what I have up on my screen, it's been really small. I figured this out last year and then I forgot while I was doing my football video. So let's go. So we're looking at this baseball card here. I'll just talk about a few of these games quickly, I guess. We have this afternoon game between Arizona and San Francisco. You can see 60% of the tickets are on Arizona. 56% of the cash, however, on the other side in San Francisco. I'm using Pregame's Game Center for this, by the way. This has always been the best visualization of this for me, even though I used to follow like a bunch of the handicappers who were on Pregame. I don't do that anymore, and all the good ones moved over to Wager Talk for the most part, so that's where I actually follow handicappers, but I still like Pregame's Event Center screen more than any of the other boards like this, except for like Don Best, which you have to pay a ton for. So this is the best free one out there still, in my opinion, so that's why I just continue to use it. Anyway, back to Arizona, San Francisco. You can see there, Arizona's public. I mean, they have the way better record than San Francisco, and Arizona, I believe, is on the verge of a sweep, if I'm not mistaken, on San Francisco, right? So they won the first 2 games of the series. I'm pretty sure this is the end of the series here. Friday is a new series. They face Houston next. I don't know if that's going to be any cause for a look ahead, as Arizona, they're in the thick of it for the playoff hunt, but Arizona, I think, is sitting so decently right now that there's like no way they're going to wind up out of a playoff spot. I wouldn't imagine. Though San Diego is actually ahead of them now in their division, but I still think Arizona's in one of the wild card spots by a decent amount. I would have to check. But so there is a little bit of a reason for Arizona to be motivated here, but the cash discrepancy here is way on the other side, even though the public likes the better team in Arizona, team with the better record, team that won the NL last year. But looking at the starting pitching matchup, I do agree with the San Francisco side here. San Francisco, as I said, for one thing, they're trying to avoid the sweep, so Arizona could get a little bit complacent as they just have beaten San Francisco twice. Arizona's got Merrill Kelly on the mound. He's been struggling recently, man. He had a decent start to the season. He went on the DL for a long time, and then he came back, and his ERA has just skyrocketed. 6.75 ERA since he's come back in the month of August. Although he faced some good offenses in here. Philadelphia, Boston, Dodgers. But still, a 12-8 strikeout walk ratio, 28 hits allowed in 21 1/3 innings. Those numbers aren't cutting it, man. So I would have to say Kelly, he's in poor enough recent form that I would go against him, even though his numbers against San Francisco, well, they're a mixed bag. We get 100 at-bats worth here. Held him to a 230 average, but a 16-12 strikeout walk ratio and 7 home runs allowed. So he's allowed so many walks and home runs against him that he has allowed an 853 OPS against him. So Kelly, his numbers are not very good, man, against San Francisco, except for the batting average. Looks good, but because they're just hitting for such power against him and walking so much against him, I would say his numbers are on the bad side, whereas Blake Snell, I mean, since he had that rough spot, he came back from the DL, and then he started pitching really well, and he's just been an ace since he came back. I mean, look at these numbers. 0.75 ERA in 4 starts in July, and then in August, he made 6 more starts and had a 1.64 ERA. And since he's come back, the Giants are, what is that, 8-2, I guess, are what the Giants are in his starts. So something like that. Is that what it is? I can't even do math anymore, man. Something like that. But his numbers have just been excellent. 16-1 strikeout walk ratios. Or no, 53. I was going to say 16 is not a lot. 53-16. So he's been striking out a lot. I mean, that's a really high strikeout rate. Actually, only 16 hits allowed in August and 38 1/3 innings pitched. Had a 30-7 strikeout walk ratio last month with 8 hits allowed in 24 innings. He's been really, really good as of late. So Blake Snell is in the much better form, basically dominant form, and his numbers against an Arizona team that is the way better offensive team, he's dominated them in a huge sample size of 97, 155 batting average, and 526 OPS. So Blake Snell is the way to lean, in my opinion, in that one. San Francisco's up, though, like I said, from -135 to -150. So, unfortunately, you're not getting the best of that number if you really want it. And Arizona does still at least have motivation, which is, I guess, kind of the one thing that keeps me off of that one a little bit. And you could look at what they did last night, too, to see what the bullpen scenario is there, where both teams used, I guess, 3 relievers. So it's kind of a wash there where I don't even know which team I would consider to have the best bullpen because I don't love either of those bullpens, really. I like the under in Seattle, Oakland, but I'm not going to quite get there with that one. It does look like there is some movement that way, down from 8 juice to the over to 7.5 juice to the over, but 97% of the cash on the over and 62% of the tickets on the over. Kind of surprises me the majority of tickets is actually coming in on the over, and I guess it even surprises me more that the cash is coming in on the over because I don't agree with it. Yesterday was a really high-scoring game. Seattle with an offensive explosion for once, which is not something you usually see. And it wasn't J.P. Sears. He did okay, and it was junk. What a great name for a pitcher. He's a junk pitcher, man. He didn't record an out last night, and he gave up 7 earned runs, and that's just completely insane because I've shrunk the window. It's not wide enough to actually even see the line here. But the bullpens didn't get used that much. Mariners used 4 relievers. A's only used 2 because they brought in Ross Stripling, who's been in their starting rotation, just to finish off the rest of the game. So they basically didn't use any of their actual relievers. So it does look decent for an under to me in this one. Brian Wu, of course, has been one of the better pitchers in the league, really, with an extremely low ERA and whip, 2.30 and 0.81. He's been great pretty much all season, although he's not like a high strikeout rate guy, but his walk rate is unbelievably low, 34-3 in the most recent month, the month of August. 2.23 ERA and only 25 hits allowed and 40 1/3. He did face a couple of good offenses in there in Philly and the Dodgers and did well there as well. Has allowed 4 earned runs at the most in his most recent start against Anaheim, but he gave up 3 home runs in that one. So that was pretty much why he gave up 4 runs, because the rest of his stats were not that bad in that one. So I expect a bounce back from him based on what we've seen out of him otherwise. He's been really good, a 71-9 strikeout walk ratio on the entire season. That walk rate is incredibly low, and the amount of hits he's allowed, 67 in 94 innings, also incredibly low. And against Oakland, he's held them to 3 for 43 with no extra base hits, 14-3 strikeout walk ratio. They hit 070 off of him in 43 at bats with a 200 OPS. So you can kind of see why I lean to the under in this one. I feel like maybe I should just play every single one of these leans just because I feel like I'm making a strong case, but Estes on the other side I think is a little bit more questionable. 4.29 ERA, 1.11 whip isn't bad on the season though, and he's been good recently this month with a 3.03 ERA, 30-4 strikeout walk ratio in the most recent month of August, and overall, 83-23 strikeout walk ratio isn't that bad, really. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys. He doesn't walk a lot either. 96 hits allowed is not a lot either, and 107 innings pitched. He's been basically a decent pitcher, and his ERA is a little bit misleadingly high, I would say. And you have to go all the way back to this awful start against the Red Sox on July 9th to find a start where he allowed more than 3 earned runs. And aside from that one against the Mets, who hit pretty well, he's allowed 2 or fewer in all the rest of his starts. And up against Seattle, he has good numbers as well. 46 at-bat sample size, 12-0 strikeout walk ratio, although he's allowed 3 homers against them, but it's still a 130 average, 522 OPS. So Estes has good numbers there. So I like the under in that one, but I don't like the fact that the cash looks like it's on the over, even though the line movement has been in the other direction. I lean to the under in that one, and I lean to the under in this other AL game, Anaheim and Texas. I actually like the under, even though it is in Texas, which I think is more of a hitting park. That's down from 8.5 juice to the over to 8.5 juice to the under. So it has gone down a little bit. Line movement that way, and the cash discrepancy is on that side in this one. 50% of the tickets on the under, or 50-50 evenly split, but 95% of the cash on the under. So I do agree with the under in this one, but Texas used a lot of their relief staff last night, so that's the one thing that kind of would give me a little bit of pause. They're coming off a big win over the Yankees, so I don't know if that means if they're in a letdown spot, if their offense might struggle a little bit, but Texas used a decent amount of their relievers yesterday, although they used Festa and Anderson, who have terrible ERAs, so I don't know if maybe their bullpen isn't in really the worst shape coming into this one, and they used Pennington, who's kind of been in their starting rotation as kind of like an opener, so they used Yates, their closer, to finish it off, get that win against the Yankees. Other than that, though, I think their bullpen is in okay shape, and these teams are switching series, so Texas was at home. They're staying at home, I believe. They were just at home against the Yankees, if I'm not mistaken. They're not returning home, are they? No, they're staying at home, whereas LA is traveling from home. Anaheim's traveling, starting a road trip. So that does tend to be a focus spot where you might see a little bit better hitting out of a team like that. But Anaheim, their offense is bad enough that what can they really do there? And what did they do yesterday as far as their pitching is concerned? They beat the Dodgers, which is a huge win for them. Griffin Canning, I almost said Graham. Griffin Canning had a good start, and then they only used 2 relief pitchers in a blowout win over the Dodgers. Bobby Miller really struggling for the Dodgers there. Anaheim, so both of these teams are coming off big wins and could be in letdown spots, so we could see their offense kind of struggle for that reason. And then the starting pitching matchup, I do think is conducive to the under, even though Jack Kohanowitz, he's a rookie for Anaheim, and he has struggled. He has a 4.96 ERA, 1.41 whip, and his strikeout walk ratio is just really bad, and this is kind of the reason I don't want to actually play on the under with him pitching. 12-7 on the season and 39 hits allowed in 32 2/3. Doesn't inspire that much confidence in me. I mean, he does not strike out enough guys for my liking, man, although in the month of August, he started pitching better. They gave him a little break after his first 2 starts were rough against not very good offenses, but then they brought him back, and he's done well, although Atlanta was really the only really good hitting team that he faced so far out of all these teams, so I don't know what we can really determine from that either. Like, maybe he's not actually that good just because he's been doing this against mostly bad offenses. But his numbers in August are decent with a 2.45 ERA. That's obviously good. And 25 and 2/3 innings pitched, but 7-4 strikeout walk ratio doesn't look that great to me. That's kind of a red flag to me, especially even though it was Atlanta who hit well. 0 strikeouts and 3 walks. I mean, that's not something I really want to back. A guy who puts up stats like that and then 1 strikeout in the next start, but no walks against Toronto. But facing Seattle, Seattle's never seen him before because he is a rookie. Wait, is he facing Seattle? No, he's not facing Seattle. Seattle has seen him before. Never mind. Texas, has never seen him before. So that's another reason that would put me on the under, is the fact that Kohanowitz has never been seen before by Texas. So even though I don't really think he's that great a pitcher, maybe he has a little bit of an edge just because Texas is not used to facing him, so they'll have to figure him out. The other thing that I think gives you a little bit of value on the under is that the public's not going to look at this Kohanowitz against Bradford and really know who these guys are and think, oh, I'm going to play an under in this game. The public doesn't really play unders anyway, but with starters who aren't name starters at all, I don't think they're going to really pay much attention to this game at all. Cody Bradford's pitching for Texas, and he's quietly under the radar because Texas has not been doing well. He is pitching well this season, man, with a 3.21 ERA, 0.89 whip, 52-8 strikeout walk ratio, and 42 hits allowed in 56 innings. He's been good and just quietly been doing it. It has not been getting a lot of fanfare here. His only really bad start was this one against St. Louis, where he allowed 5 earned runs. And other than that, I think he's allowed 3 or fewer in every other one. He's got at least 6 in his last 4 starts. And the start where he went 5 before that against the Yankees, that's not even that bad. And the Red Sox, they can hit okay. He didn't do well against the Red Sox, really. But since then, he bounced back nicely and has had a bunch of good starts in a row, including one against Cleveland, against Minnesota, who hit decently. 3.12 ERA in the month of August, 33-5 strikeout walk ratio, only 27 hits allowed in 34 2/3. So Bradford has been pitching well, and up against, who was he facing? Anaheim? Up against Anaheim. They have seen him before, but small sample size, 20. He has allowed 2 home runs against them, but 5.0 strikeout walk ratio. He's held them to a 250 batting average, but an 850 OPS. But it is a small sample size, so the home runs could be a little bit fluky maybe, and a lot of it was Drury with a 3-run home run there, and I guess Pilar, not Kevin Millar, Kevin Pillar, not the former Red Sox player, does have the other home run against him. So I would still say his numbers are like decent in his career against the Angels, but it's a small sample size, 250 with an 850 OPS, 250 batting average. So I do like the under there, but the game I'm actually playing, because I think this is a motivation mismatch here for one thing. I'm actually going to play Minnesota, even though they're public and on the road. The public's going to come in on the Minnesota Twins because they're the better team. They have the better record. People know they're fighting for one of the wild card spots, which they are. And Kansas City, I believe, with their win yesterday, might actually be ahead of Minnesota again. I'd have to look, but Minnesota and Kansas City are neck and neck, man. And they don't want to risk not making the playoffs, of course, even though the Red Sox have fallen so far behind that I think Minnesota and Kansas City are both going to get in. But they're in the hunt, while Tampa, they're going to have to be facing the facts that their season is over, man, even though they've played well in this series. This is a spot where I think Minnesota would be the play, even though Tampa has won 2 games against Minnesota, who should be a more motivated team fighting for that playoff spot. This is a 4-game series, and Minnesota won the first game, I believe, but that was a Tampa return home spot, I'm pretty sure. So it was a bad spot for Tampa returning home. Then after Tampa didn't do well in that first game, it was a better spot for Tampa to bounce back in the second game, which is what happened, and Tampa won. Then they won again last night. So now I think Minnesota is going to be the more motivated team to try to even the series. Whereas Tampa, I don't think they have that much left to play for, man. They're out of it, like I said. And I believe they start a series against Baltimore tomorrow. Big AL East series there. So Tampa could have a little bit of a look ahead there after they've won 2 games against Minnesota. They might be feeling pretty good about themselves, even though they probably don't want to split the series either, really. But they could have one eye looking ahead to Baltimore here after winning those 2 games against the Twins. Yesterday, they beat the Twins 9-4. kind of an embarrassing loss for the Twins, really. Not a lot of teams give up 9 runs against the Rays. The Rays went with kind of an opener approach with Sulser throwing the first 2 innings. And they did use Alexander in relief, who's been kind of in and out of their rotation. And teams do tend to do a little bit better after they use an opener approach for whatever reason, because it kind of saves some of their other relievers. But Tampa's bullpen is really not very impressive, and they did use a couple of their other relievers, including Kelly, who's kind of one of the better ones. So I don't think Tampa's bullpen is really in that great shape coming into this game, even though they saved some of their guys by using Alexander. I still think Tampa, their bullpen's just not that good in general. And the Twins, on the other side, they kind of negated that by also going with an opener. So what am I even saying? So both teams went with an opener. Henriquez just went 1 inning, and then they used Varland, who's been in the starting rotation, and he just did not cut it. He's had some decent numbers in some ways, but like strikeout walk-wise, but he has just been giving up way too many runs and whatever, and he really gave it up last night. And then they saved their best relievers. So the Twins' best relievers are all in play tonight, man, like Jackson, Duran, and those other guys. None of them got used last night, even though Blewett and Tonkin have good ERAs. Twins have the better bullpen in general, and those are guys that come in and eat innings, which is what they wanted to do last night in that opener approach. So I think the Twins' bullpen is the better bullpen and in the better shape out of the two coming into this game. So I think they have the bullpen advantage. I think there's no question the Twins have the better offense. Tampa's is not very good. And then we look at the starting pitching matchup. This is what I said. We have kind of the trifecta here, where sometimes I tend to weight the starting pitching too much, but hopefully I'm not doing so in this game. I think we have the motivation. This is just like last night, man. The Cubs had the motivation. They had the better offense, the better starting pitcher, and the bullpen in the better scenario. And I think we have all of that going for us in this game as well. Pablo Lopez is pitching for Minnesota. He's the pitcher who I'd much rather back out of these two right now, given their recent form. 4.05 ERA on the season isn't terrible, but a 1.12 whip kind of indicates his ERA should be better. He has a lot of strikeouts, 164 and only 33 walks, not that bad. The home runs has really been what's kind of hurt him. 22 home runs isn't very good, but Tampa, not the most powerful offense, maybe wouldn't be able to take complete advantage of that, and he's only allowed 142 hits and 155 and 2/3 innings pitched. So high strikeout rate, good strikeout walk ratio, not allowing a lot of hits, good whip. So Pablo Lopez has been good, better than his ERA would even indicate. And after he had some struggles, he had kind of a bad month of June there. Faced the Yankees there, did face Tampa, and actually did terribly against them in that game. But I'll get to that in a minute, why I don't think that matters as much, because we're going to see that his numbers against Tampa are actually good, even including that start. So I don't think it matters that much. So after a bad June where he had a 5 ERA, bad couple of months really, he started improving again, had a much better August, a much better July with a 3.9 ERA, 32-8 strikeout walk ratio, 25 hits allowed in 30 innings. And then we rolled into August, and he faced a couple good offenses there too. Houston, Milwaukee, and the Mets. So kind of a majority of good offenses there. And since not doing well against Houston run-wise, at least, strikeout walk ratio was fine, 6.2. 6 runs allowed isn't great, but since then, he's allowed 4 or fewer in all the rest of his starts. And if you take that Cubs one out here, where he allowed 4 earned runs, all the rest of his starts, he's allowed 2 or fewer earned runs, and he's got at least 6 innings in all of them except the White Sox one. So he's been going deeper into games, which I like. And then in August, he had a 1.71 ERA with a 22-5 strikeout walk ratio. So he was pitching well in the month of August. He's been pitching well recently, coming off a shutout against Toronto in 7 2/3. Coming off 3 shutouts in a row, actually. So he hasn't had a letdown. He's allowed no runs in the last, whatever that is, 20 2/3 innings pitched, 0 runs allowed. So he is definitely in his rhythm right now, I would say, even though it's not that impressive to do it to St. Louis and Toronto. Their offense, meh. Texas's offense is more impressive to do it against, especially on the road. 29 hits allowed in 31 2/3. So he's in good recent form. And then we look at his numbers against Tampa. I said, don't worry that much about that bad start against Tampa. And imagine what his numbers looked like against Tampa before that game, because he had a bad game against Tampa back there. And his numbers against them in a 53 at-bat sample size now are still really good. He's held them to 10 hits, 10 for 53, 1 double, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 10-0 strikeout walk ratio, 53 at bats. He's held them to a 189 batting average and 453 OPS. And if anything, because he's bounced back and been pitching so well recently, maybe he'll remember doing really badly against Tampa and want to bounce back from that. Even though you could argue that, well, Tampa saw him recently, so they're a little bit more familiar with him, sure, but they've faced a bunch of other starters since then. And he's a veteran pitcher, so it's not like he's this rookie that they had to figure out. So I think it's more likely that he'll be kind of motivated and bounce back here. And because he knows his team is trying to get into the playoffs again and whatever, I think we can expect a more motivated performance there. Whereas on the other side, you got Taj Bradley. And we might see that the bettors coming in here might be a little bit mistaken maybe and think that maybe this is a matchup between some kind of evenly matched pitchers, but I'm not so sure about that, as Bradley has really been struggling recently with his ERA going up. It was, I think, below 4 for a while. Now it's 4.35. 1.22 whip is a little bit high too, so his overall numbers are worse than Lopez's. His 121 to 38 strikeout walk ratio is nice. He does have a lot of strikeouts in 109 and 2/3 innings pitch, only allowing 96 hits, so he's been pretty good. He's putting together a pretty good season. We can see he started off nice, and now, I mean, he's a young guy. He's only 23 years old, so I think we're reaching the point in the season where he is a good pitcher, and he put together a nice season, but now he's like really starting to lose steam, even though he did face some good offenses here in Houston, Dodgers, and San Diego. This month of August that he had was not good, man, where he went 6 innings in 2 of the 5 and went fewer than 5 innings in the other 3 out of the 5. 10.41 ERA in the month of August, 18 to 10 strikeout walk ratio, so he started becoming wild. His strikeout rate went down in 23 to 30 innings pitching. He allowed 37 hits, 6 home runs, and a lot of runs, 27 earned runs, so he really has started struggling. And against Minnesota, I mean, Minnesota faced him back in June, so they did see him as well. So both pitchers have been seen, I think, once by the opposing offenses this year. He did do pretty decently in that start, although the 3-2 strikeout walk ratio wasn't very good. But he went 6 innings, allowing 2 runs, so that's pretty good. 2 earned runs, but even if you include that start, his numbers against Minnesota are actually not good. So even when these Minnesota hitters were facing him for the first time, right out of the gate, they were actually able to hit him well. We have 32 at-bats, which isn't a huge sample size, but they're 10 for 32 often with 2 doubles, 3 home runs, 3 RBIs, 7-4 strikeout walk ratio, and that amounts to a 312 batting average and 1,045 OPS. And like I said, that includes that decent start that he had against them this year. So in this matchup, we have Lopez hopefully being the more motivated pitcher of the two, because Minnesota should be the more motivated team. And he has the better recent stats by far. He's in the better recent form than Bradley is, and he has the better stats historically against the opposing hitters than Bradley does. So I think that's a play, man, on Minnesota. They're up from -127 to -135, unfortunately, so the line's going up. 89% of the tickets. I don't like that they're public, but they have 97% of the cash as well. To me, it looks like the market is still indicating on their side with the cash being heavier on them and the line moving up on them. So I like Minnesota. That's the actual play I'm making here with the motivation discrepancy, and I think they have the edge in every phase of this game, and hopefully it happens. You can lay like -135, on the money line. I don't mind that. Or you could split run line, money line. Like I say, you can do that. Or you can play a -1 run line to get the price down, get it at a cheaper price. You can lay -1. And then, of course, if they win by 1, it'll push, but you're paying a lot less for it. So you can get that at probably plus money, maybe, or right close to around -110, maybe, somewhere in that ballpark. Pun intended, I guess. Or, like I say, you can make your own -1 run line and maybe find the best value by doing it by putting half of your bet on the -1.5 run line. So for that half of the bet to cash, they do have to win by more than 1.5 runs. But the other half would just be on the money line. So for that half to cash, they would only need to win the game. And because that -1.5 is going to be at plus money at probably like plus 125, plus 130, something like that, you get a decent enough price on that even if that loses and the money line wins, so if they win by 1 run, essentially, you'd still win like a slight amount of money that way because you paid less on the run line portion of it. So you could do it that way too. So sometimes I do that. I'll put it in the description. I don't know which way I'm going to go with this yet. If it's -135 or lower, I might just fire on the money line on this one at -135. And then before I get out of here, Ravens-Chiefs, man. Let me see if we can What do we have here? We can go to NFL, I guess. Yeah, here's the NFL schedule. All right, there it is. Ravens and Chiefs as the NFL kicks off tonight, of course, with the Super Bowl returning champs, Kansas City Chiefs, facing the Baltimore Ravens. And I tend to fade teams that were in the Super Bowl, although I like to fade the Super Bowl loser in week one more so than the winner, because that Super Bowl loser, there is like a known hangover effect there where the loser of the Super Bowl tends to not do that well in the first game the next season, which is Monday night, San Francisco and the Jets. I am likely going to be having a play on the Jets. Like I said, I gave out the NFL plays at the start of the show. Philadelphia Eagles tomorrow, -2.5, although you might have to lay -3 now or maybe play like a money line on it. I like that one. That's the only one that I think is going to be, like, that's the one where I think the value might get lost because the public is a little bit on the Eagles as well, I think, which kind of surprises me. The other two, I think the public is so against them that I don't think you have to worry that much about losing that much value if you wait to play the Tennessee Titans and then Monday night the New York Jets. So if I have those three plays, they're all going to be on different days now because the NFL is so crazy. They're spreading all these games out, and you have to have a million different streaming services now. We have Thursday night, I guess, is not Amazon Prime tonight. I think it will be on Amazon Prime for the rest of the season, but it's on Peacock. But I guess because it's the first game of the season, it is also on NBC tonight. So you can actually watch this game on TV. Hey, for once. And then tomorrow's game, I don't know where that game's going to be. The Friday night game, the Brazil game. This is just all crazy, man. But Kansas City, all right. Kansas City's up from -2.5 to -3 in this one, but we see 58% of the tickets on the other side. So the Ravens actually getting a little bit of the majority of tickets, but also 60% of the cash. So a little bit more of the cash on the Ravens. This one was being close to me considering making a play on this. I like the Ravens in this one, plus the points. The Chiefs, I mean, I thought they would be more public than they are because I think they're getting the hype because they're the Super Bowl champion, and there's that thing about them where it's like, oh, well, these teams, the Ravens, more so the Bills, but also the Ravens, these teams just can't beat the Chiefs, man. The Chiefs always just wind up beating these other playoff teams. But people might remember the Chiefs did lose. They played Thursday night last year, too, because they were the Super Bowl champion last year as well coming into the season, and they lost this opening game, if you remember, at home against the Detroit Lions as like a 7-point favorite or something in that ballpark. So the Chiefs are no stranger to actually losing this opening game because it happened last year. But is that going to make them focus this time? Because they're going to remember, hey, we didn't focus enough last year. We lost that game. We're going to refocus and win this time. Yes, it could potentially motivate them for that reason here. And they got rid of Kadarius Toney, is that his name? The guy who notoriously dropped a play that might help them win that game against Detroit last year. He is gone from the team. So the guy with the worst hands in football, Butterfingers, is gone from the Chiefs. So that probably will help them a little bit. But I still like the Ravens here. Even though the Ravens, I think they've had some turnover like in their coaching department. I think they might have a new coordinator coming in maybe on the defense. I can't remember exactly. But the Ravens did lose a couple of their better defensive players. They had the best defense in football last year. A defense that was historically good, actually. And I think led the league in like sacks. I think maybe yards allowed and points allowed. They led the league in all three of those or something like that. It was the first time that had ever happened. An elite defense on the Ravens side. This is still going to be a good defense this year. They lost some of their better players, but I still think it's going to be a very good defense and one of the better defenses in football. It should be. So that's good for the Ravens. And the Chiefs, they have a very similar team. I mean, all those guys are back for the most part. I think pretty much the Chiefs are going to be similar to last year as well, as their defense was better than we thought it was going to be. They actually wound up being a more of a defensive team than an offensive team last year, which is kind of crazy to see. The Chiefs' offense was kind of more of like a game management and like we're going to win when it counts pretty much, but the defense really helped them last year. So their defense is going to be good as well. So I also do like an under in this one, even though the market looks against it, up from 45.5 to 46.5, 59% of the tickets on the over, but 78% of the cash on the over. I don't understand that, the cash discrepancy being on the over and the line moving up on the over, because it's the first game of the season, man. It should be a highly competitive game between two pretty decent defenses. The total's a little bit low for that reason, but I'm not sure that it's low enough, really. So I do lean to the under in that one, but I think the stronger way to lean is on the side in this one. I like the Ravens. Plus the 3, I think, is decent if that's what you can get. I don't know if you have to pay a little bit extra juice because it looks like it's reduced juice on the -3 for the Baltimore side, but -115 even on the +3 I don't think is that bad. That's like a decent price to pay to get that key number of 3, which is very key in football, obviously, because it's exactly a field goal. 3, 4, and 7, basically the key numbers in football. But the reason why I like the Ravens, basically for 2 reasons. One being what I already said, that the Chiefs could be in that little bit of a Super Bowl hangover effect, and they could be a little bit overvalued because they were the Super Bowl winner. But the other reason is because they beat the Baltimore Ravens. Everybody remembers that happening in it was the AFC Championship last year, right? I believe it was. The Chiefs went into Baltimore and beat them. So I think some of that, like, public perception and reaction that might be, well, the Chiefs just went into Baltimore in the playoffs last year and beat them in Baltimore. Now Baltimore has lost some of their defensive players, so of course the Chiefs are going to beat them at home, right? We saw what the Chiefs could do at home. They kept winning at home. I think that might be the perception there, but I kind of disagree with it. And I think even though revenge is an overstated thing and it doesn't matter that much in the NFL, like if it's just some regular season game and this team lost to some other team last year, I don't think revenge is really that much of a factor. If it was like, oh, this team lost to this team at some point last year, and it's just some random matchup, and they happen to be facing each other again. But where I think it does matter more is playoff revenge. You remember which team ended your season last year. I mean, that was literally the last time the Ravens played in a game that actually had something at stake. That was the AFC Championship. The Ravens lost that game to the Chiefs. They remember that. They're going to want this game, man. I think they're going to be the more motivated team in this game for that reason. I think the Ravens are going to be pissed off about that. They absolutely remember that. The team that just ended their season the last time they played a game that mattered. The Ravens, I believe, are the right side for that reason. I think that is a substantial factor in this game. And, I mean, the Ravens do have some other personnel changes that I guess I should mention. Their offense is going to be similar, but they did add Derrick Henry. So a Ravens team that already was a really good rushing offense because Lamar Jackson does run around. I think one of the reasons they lost that playoff game is because they were focusing on throwing the ball too much, and they fell behind early, and they were throwing the ball. They didn't fall behind by that much, so they shouldn't have been throwing as much as they were. So maybe the Ravens will actually learn from that this time. The Ravens may take away something from what they did in that game and be like, we shouldn't throw it as much, and maybe they'll keep their motivations or their emotions in check more, because like Zay Flowers made at least one like pretty inexcusable penalty there, and I think he had a drop that would have been a touchdown, and a couple of just bad mistakes too that cost the Ravens the game as well. So I think if those things don't happen and they clean it up a little bit, I think that's going to help the Ravens as well. But as I was saying, they added Derrick Henry to the mix, so this rushing attack that was already good last year is going to have another component to it where they're going to have like a multi-headed monster, really, with these guys that can run. And they have Zay Flowers as a wide receiver, but I think he's more of a Debo type, I believe, where they also run him a lot. This Ravens offense is going to have multiple different running backs, and now they have Henry, who's kind of a workhorse back in there, too, who is probably going to be running as well. And I think the fact that they have Henry might actually put their focus in the right place, which is running the football, because that's what they're the best at. They don't want to be passing as much as they were. They were just way too pass heavy in that playoff game, man. That's not what the Ravens want to do. They want to gash you on the ground. They want to run the football and then establish that rushing attack, and then that can open up things for Lamar Jackson. And they don't want Jackson to have to do every single thing through the air. And you can open it up for Jackson to kind of do stuff with his feet as well. So I like the Ravens plus the points in that one. It was close to being a bet for me. I don't think I'm actually going to bet it. That's going to do it for me, man. So my one play is in baseball in the Minnesota Twins. I guess let me know. I don't think I had any live viewers here, did I? Oh, I do see Evil Bull Weevil is in the comment. Thank you, man. Condense my picks and call them Toads Loads. Maybe I'll do like a walking bets type of thing where this will be like the long format, and then I'll have like shorter videos where I just really quickly say, yo, bet the Minnesota Twins, man. Pablo Lopez, way better than Taj Bradley right now. Bradley sucks right now. Get it done. And I'll do it while like Well, the Toad's Lows, I was going to say I'll do it while like jerking off or something. I don't know if I really want to do that, but I don't know. I'll figure something out instead of the walking bets, but we'll see. So thank you, Evil Bowl Weevil, for the comment. And you guys can let me know if this format is any better, but hopefully the added visuals are at least better. Have a good day, man. It's going to do it. I'm Toad, Tower Gang Toad on Twitter. Follow the Tower Gang podcast, baby. And we had another episode last night, Wednesday nights. The most offensive podcast on the planet. It is fun. Peace out.